On this episode, we're going to talk about how a football changed our lives. Hey, he's Kevin.
She's Robyn.
And we're the Schwobs. So football. Well, first, I think we need to backtrack.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We just finished dealing with Kenny. Kenny's healthy. Yay.
Right.
Homeschooling him, living in the house.
Yep.
And you and him and two other friends.
Yep. Went on a father-son
retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us a little bit about this retreat.
Well, there's a place called Camp Grace here in Georgia that had just started doing father-son retreats. And Kenny got a flyer, I think, in Sunday school.
Yeah.
Comes to me all excited and says, let's go on this thing. And so, okay, sounds like a great idea. Got a hold of our friend Chuck and his son and went to Camp Grace. Mm-hmm. And we were having an awesome time. And I looked at the camp director on a Friday night this was Saturday, I guess. And I said,
supposed to be on vacation.
Had a great time, but the insurance guy in me is going to come out for a second.
He's supposed to be on
vacation. And I said, you've got a zip line, a rock climbing wall, canoeing, and archery. And I said, nobody in this room has signed an insurance waiver. And so we, finish out the night, have a great time. And about 6 hours later, all of us are around throwing a football. And according to Chuck, I threw this awesome touchdown pass and dropped to the ground and broke my hip. And it was totally a freak accident. Nobody hit me. Nobody tackled me. I didn't fall on anything. It happened.
It just gave way.
It gave way. So we end up heading to the hospital after having lunch because we honestly didn't think anything had really happened.
You mostly thought you had just fallen, right?
I just thought that I had fallen. Didn't think much of it.
So you had lunch headed home and you called me.
No, we were heading to the hospital. We knew something was wrong, but we just didn't.
Well, you called me, I think, before lunch.
I think so, yeah. I thought I called you from the car, but...
And you said you had fallen and that you felt okay.
Mm-hmm. To get it checked out.
But you were going to most likely get it checked out, but you guys weren't in any hurry, and you would call me. Like, okay, I happened to be at Budokan. I went to church, and then I went over to get some work done at the center.
Right.
And so Belinda was there, and I told her what was going on. And then I get another call.
This one from the
car saying, you're in pain.
Extreme pain. And we were heading to the hospital. Heading to St. Joe's. And
no, did you head to St. Joe's?
Yeah. We were going to St. Joe's because...
But you ended up at Northside.
I'm not sure, honestly.
You ended up at... Joe's, you ended up... St. Joe's, we went for your TMIs.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So here's the thing. Kevin's at the Mercy... drive-wise, Chuck.
Yeah.
And you guys are what, 45 an hour and a half?
We're about 45 minutes out at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's about a two-hour drive.
Yeah. And Chuck is hauling it.
And here's the thing, you can't just stop anywhere.
No.
And so they're trying to get on this this side of town, on the Atlanta side of town, because they're out in the woods, basically. They're out in the dune box.
Right.
And
so I'm telling you, meet us at the hospital.
Mhm.
And and Chuck, bless his heart, he's apologizing left and right because he's having to hit the brake. And I'm like, pal, just drive. I really don't care. We just got to get there. And so we get there, and the doctor in the emergency room, oh my gosh, he looks at me and he says, I shouldn't be doing this on you. And I looked at him and I said, Slick, I don't need you to tell me what you're not here, what you shouldn't do.
Wait. I think you're getting to put that more in context.
Okay.
Because you were how old at the time?
I was 43 at the time.
You were 43 at the time and having hip issues.
Right. And he said that a 43-year-old shouldn't need a hip replacement. Right. And so he was trying to save the hip.
Well, here's the thing. I think you need to go into. You went into the. You guys beat me there.
Yeah, we did.
And they had already taken you back when I got there. Mm-hmm. And I get there, and I get bombarded by one Kenny. and you know, him and Chuck's son were there playing, but he came over and he's like, Dad went boom. Okay. Dad went boom.
Dad went boom.
Dad went boom. So
big time.
They let me back to see you. Yeah. I went up and I said who I was and who I was there with and that kind of stuff. And they had just gotten back to your room from having the x-ray taken. And that's when we found out it was broken. It was broken. And the doctor actually gave us two options. A hip replacement or fix it. And we went with fix it. And so that meant you weren't going anywhere.
No.
So Chuck and I went out to Chuck's car, got all your stuff and Kenny's stuff, got it into my car. They left. Kenny and I stayed around for a little bit longer.
Right.
And then we went home. And
he did screw my hip back together that day. Yeah.
Yeah, you had surgery that evening.
That evening.
For it to be screwed back together. A couple days later, you came home.
Because he did say you shouldn't have a hip replacement at your age.
Right. So he screwed back together. And okay, so Kevin has a hard time walking because this man thought he needed attention and got hit by a car. And so he walked with a limp. It wasn't his fault. He was obeying the rules and regs. And that was before he met me. So
I haven't obeyed the rules ever since, but you know.
He's married to me. I don't obey rules a lot of the time. Just ask our child every time we go up. We live in a small downtown. This is a squirrel, but this is a funny squirrel. We live in a small downtown, and there's crosswalks everywhere in the downtown. And if there's no cars coming, I will walk on the crosswalk across to the next.
With a red light.
With a red light. My son, if he is with me, and I even attempt to step out onto the crosswalk, he will grab me and pull me back and say, that's not the rule. It doesn't say walk. I'm like, but there's no cars coming anywhere. Yeah. Try and explain that. I hung out at Hampton Beach and you had to dodge cars. Doesn't work either.
Yeah. No.
Anyway, so he gets his hip screwed back together. You come home and we're dealing, or should I say, you're dealing with stairs.
Oh,
we live in a split level
house.
And so what can we do? This man is sitting on his butt scooting himself up the
Up and down.
steps, then using a walker to get where he needs to go. How long did you do that? It was like a month.
Well, let's see. Probably a month or two at least. And we were in a situation where the doctor said, you need to watch your blood supply for 6 months and make sure that your blood supply holds. If it holds, then you should be fine.
And they're talking about the blood supply in the bone.
In the bone of the hip.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then you need a hip replacement. So, I mean, my balance has never been the strongest in the world, but even after this,
it was worse.
So much worse. And so, lo and behold, I mean, really the only way I could get around stairs was scooting. And so we came to the difficult decision.
Well, before that, we got to talk about your friends. Your work friends were so
accommodating,
helpful. One in particular.
Not so much.
Well, no, he was very helpful when he was able to, but you know who I'm talking about. My stubborn child.
Yeah, your unwanted stepchild.
My unwanted stepchild. He's only about 7 years younger than me.
Yeah,
so I guess he'd be my unwanted brother, but I acted more like a mother to him than a sister, so he needed one. Anyway,
he did.
Love you, bro.
If you see this on Facebook, you know who you are.
Yes. And I love you. And but he came anytime he could to give you a ride, and you had 2 or 3 other people who would come and get you to work, because you don't drive, couldn't drive than any of you could, but you had to take Marta, and that was a
Marta
walk.
Was not happening.
And it was a walk. It wasn't like it was out the door of our house. It was a 15-minute walk.
Okay. So they were extremely helpful. This one in particular actually came and stayed with me at the house a few different times when I needed somebody to be at the house.
Yeah.
And but God just put people in our lives.
He did.
I remember one of Mom and Jerry's friends coming over with Jerry and brought this huge thing of barbecue that was excellent. They helped rearrange upstairs. They brought the TV from downstairs and brought it upstairs. And then helped turn our upstairs into the Schwob Speedway. So that I could walk around and strengthen my hip, even though I was on what they call toe touch. I still needed, to work up the strength in that leg. And but I mean, so many different people that came out of the woodwork.
And then we came with the news that your hip wasn't holding the blood supply.
The blood supply didn't hold. And so in October, we had to have the hip replacement done. And yet again, God showed up and people showed out, and
my mom came yet again.
Yeah,
but this was a little different because we were dealing with some different things. Like, so Kenny now is in 1st grade. And he is at a school. And we had a few bumps and bruises with him, but things were going pretty good.
Right. And we made the difficult decision to
walk away from the house. And so Mom and I were getting ready to do a garage. People. If you're going through something that is stressful,
right,
take a breath and don't put more stupid, idiotic stress things on top of it.
No.
Am I not the queen of doing that?
Yeah.
I do it all the time. And this was no exception. My husband's in the hospital. My son's at school. And I'm getting ready to do a garage sale to get rid of stuff. because we're moving into an apartment.
We have lived with the motto of go big or go home. I mean, if you're
Yeah,
going to do
do it
big.
big.
So we made that difficult decision, and then we went.
And the reason, let me just, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh no,
The
go ahead.
reason to say we didn't put the house on the market or anything like that is we were at a time when we had a realtor come in, and it wasn't worth what we bought it for.
No, we were underwater.
And so um, we decided, instead of trying to sell it and not having enough to pay off the mortgage anyway, that it made more sense just to walk away.
And we knew the repercussion was going to be on our record for at least 7 years.
Yeah.
But then we came with a battle. And that battle was that you, along with other people, were saying to me, you need to go into rehab.
All right. So let's unpack this, or not impact this, but depack it. Whatever that word is. Unpack. Pack something. Something pack.
Right.
Let's unpack this, because this became a huge thorn.
Yeah.
In
major.
Our sides for many years. Many years I wasn't aware of for some of it. And it really affected our relationship.
Yeah.
And it's still, y'all, we just celebrated 22 years.
Oh, yeah. And when this accident happened, we just celebrated 12.
Yes. And let me just say this. If you go into a marriage thinking everything's going to be hunky-dory and there's going to be no issues,
roses and rainbows,
don't get married. Seriously.
No.
You know, they say, the Army says, it's the toughest job you'll ever love. Marriage, there are two things that are much tougher than the Army, in my opinion, but I've never been in the Army, so I can't compare it per se. But for me, being a parent is one of the toughest jobs I would ever love. And one of the toughest jobs ever, and on most days I do love him, is being married. Period. Not just married to him, but just being married. In my case, it's to him. But
well, and for you, you married a guy who has special needs to begin with.
Right.
And so this injury on top of it was just another obstacle that we had to walk through.
Right. I mean, definitely for better or worse, for richer or
right,
till death.
And there were many times where you were ready to
do us part.
Yeah.
I could say something, but then it would be on air, and I know your mom listens to these, and then I hear a phone call coming in my direction.
Oh, there would be.
So,
but,
hi, Mom.
So we had many people who were.
So we had a couple people. Belinda was a very strong person in my corner, and she's like, he needs to be in rehab, and I'm like, you're right, he does. He needs to go to rehab. So I started researching rehab and found this place not too close. Now, I'm saying you need to go to rehab. And the reason I'm saying you need to go to rehab is we're moving into a 2-bedroom apartment where there's not much room to move around for you to do
square feet, if that.
For you to do exercises. My mother is here and staying with us in this 2-bedroom apartment, which means my son is sleeping on the couch. I am working. Kenny's going to school.
Yep.
I have to fix meals. I have to do all this other stuff. I cannot, for lack of better word, babysit you.
Right.
On top of all that, you don't listen to me. So you're not going to, when I tell you to get up and walk, you ain't going to do it. When I tell you you need to do this exercise, you need to do that exercise, you ain't going to do it. So You're going to do it.
You need somebody else to kick my tail.
Here's the incentive. The faster you go through rehab, the faster you come home.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really, this whole thing, it really put me in a bad spot mentally. I wasn't thinking straight.
Can I ask a question before I say this? Can I get real?
Go.
Okay. So you and I've had conversations about this a lot, especially this past couple of years. You tend to be a person who wants what you want. And you didn't get what you wanted.
No.
Because it wasn't what was best for everyone.
Right.
And you weren't seeing that.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't looking at the big picture.
Poor Kevin didn't get his way, basically. I mean, it goes a lot more complicated than that to a point, but that's the basic. And then we had a little hiccup. So he gets done with the surgery. They transfer him to this facility. And, so it's Friday. He's going into his facility. I get called from the school Thursday. My son's been suspended for hitting another child. So my mother, luckily my mom's at home, is at the house, so she puts the boy to work. Now, let me just say, that was the start of us seeing what had happened to Kenny via his concussion.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of seeing things that we had never seen in this sweet child before. So I'm dealing with all that. The next day we have this garage sale. Mom and I are selling blah, blah, blah. A friend of ours who happens to have the same name as me stopped by with lunch for us, which was so sweet of her. And you call me.
I did.
And you're slurring your words.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So I had just started a new medication. I'm going to back up a minute. When I had initially broke my hip, we got a phone call from our primary care doctor. And she asked me, she said, "You take Tegretol, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I've been taking it for 35 years. Why?" She says, "One of the side effects is bone loss." And
no, we did not.
No, did not know that. Now, for anybody who's been taking medication for any length of time, 35 years ago, and at this point, that was the late 70s, you didn't talk about side effects. No. Here's what the prescription does. Here's what it cures. You sign on the dotted line. You pay your $50. You smile. You're on your merry way. My mom didn't ask questions. I didn't ask questions. We just went home. No big deal. And nowadays, you listen to a 60-second spot of medications, and 50 seconds of that 60 is about side effects. And you're like, why do I want to put this poison in my body?
And you no longer put any poison in your body.
No, I don't. Jesus. Yeah, amen to that. And we'll talk about that on another episode. But this particular day, I said, okay, we need to stop taking this thing. And so I got off the Tegretol.
And they got onto a different medication.
Onto something called Keppra. And I turned into a nasty son of a gun. Robyn saw a side of me that she'd never seen. I was getting short.
If this side had come out when we were dating, we would not have gotten married.
Oh, gosh, no. I mean, it was stuff that, anybody who knew me before this medication knows that I'm a patient guy. Things don't get to me easy.
He has to be patient.
And I was getting short at the smallest.
Oh, my head. It was awful. It was awful.
You sneeze funny, and I would bite your head
but
off.
We did not know this at this time yet.
No, and so one of the and it was a side effect.
It was a side effect, and so he calls me all, you
All slurred.
slurred.
Yeah.
And he's like, honey, I don't feel right. Something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
So
And
I call his mother and I'm like, how far? Because I knew they were visiting you that morning.
right.
They had told me they were going to visit because they knew I was doing the yard sale and wasn't going to
Right.
be able to get there. And so she's like, well, we're a few minutes out. And Kevin calls me back and goes, I want you here. I'm like, okay, leave my mom and my son to do this yard sale.
Right.
I get there, your mom and Jerry are there, and we find
Something.
out that they overdosed him on his medications.
Yeah. I had said to these people, I said, I've been told I only need to take it once a day, and they overdosed me. And I said, you need to get me out of here, and you need to do it now. I said, this just can't happen. And so,
Well,
thankfully,
you make it sound like it was like very easy,
no, it wasn't
and
easy.
it wasn't, and because we knew going to the apartment wasn't an option,
Right.
and not only we were just moving in, we were still trying to get everything in. I
We're just
mean,
trying to get
we were
settled.
between two places at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and so that wasn't, and so unbeknownst, I think, to you, even though you were like, "Get me out of here now,"
Mm-hmm.
um, your mother and I had a conversation,
Oh, okay.
and we tried to figure out what the best solution was, and she suggested now their house, and at that point they had a beautiful house, 2 stories, master on the main, all the other bedrooms upstairs. And
Right.
one reason they did the master on the main is because Jerry's knees were a little bit
Weren't in the best of shape.
old.
Yeah.
I mean, they were, and he had pain in them, and so they made it easy.
Right.
And plus, Jerry and Linda, they were willing to give up their room for you and stay upstairs. And so that's when we decided that. And Jerry's like, I'll make sure he gets his exercises because I want him out of my house, out of my bed. No,
well, and one of the first questions he came to me and said, "Okay, you want to be home? How quick?"
Yep.
And that dictated to him how quick he was going to get me there.
And
And
so
he was really the best solution.
he was. And so we made the decision to check him out,
Mm-hmm.
and we got him comfortable in your parents' car.
Right.
And you went and stayed with them for the next week and a half while I finished unpacking and organizing and all that fun stuff of two houses. And what came of that, and it definitely, your medication was part of it.
Yeah.
But I think how you felt, I think because of the overdose situation, that, I mean, when we went and looked at this place,
Everything was good. All the ratings were good.
yeah,
All of the reviews were
it
spot
was
on.
it was partway
It was close
between
by,
our house and my job,
covered
and
by insurance,
right.
the whole bit.
The one thing that Kevin was like, he's like, so you're gonna come visit me every day, and and I said, I don't know if that's gonna be possible, and he had, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm never wrong, but if by one chance I am, please correct it. You were angry. One, you were angry because of the overdose situation.
Yeah.
But I think you were angry at me because you felt I was trying to get rid of you.
I subconsciously, I didn't know this until many years later,
Right.
but I was subconsciously bitter at the fact that you put me there. And again, I didn't realize this until about 2 years ago. But it felt as if I was pushed out of my home. And even though I know fully now that wasn't the case, but I was not mentally in a good place. And I just wasn't looking at everything with the entire scope in picture. Um, and I didn't want to be away from you and Kenny. I didn't want to be away from home. Um,
But at the same
and
time, he wasn't looking at it from how it affected me.
no,
And
I
I
wasn't.
think, you know, looking back, they say hindsight's
2020.
2020. I may have not been doing the best job to hear your concerns because you have to understand the way I grew up. It's done, it's said, boom.
That was, yeah, and
And you know, he married, we joke
hmm
that I am Wonder Woman.
you are, yeah.
Um because he married a very strong, independent, stubborn woman.
hmm
Um
I don't
but
need anybody to do it for me.
I don't. I'm
hmm
capable. But
Mm,
here's the thing. I knew my limitations when it came to the situation.
yeah,
Um I couldn't be in 6 places at once. I was already in 5.
right.
And like I said, then my son, my first grader gets suspended. Um, actually, no, he was in 2nd grade.
Yeah, he was at Mountain Park at
Yeah,
that
he
point
was at second grade.
because Mountain Park was before Hembry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he
hmm
was in 2nd grade. So my
He was in
second,
transition there. He
he
wasn't in Hembry yet.
right. That's not the important part. The important part is he wasn't in first. He was in
He
second.
was in
And
second.
if he
Yeah.
when and if he ever hears this podcast and he hears that I put him in first, I'll never hear the end of it.
Nope. Nope.
But anyway, I was dealing with a second grader who was all of a sudden, and he didn't have issues in first grade. Second was worse.
Mm,
And of course, I think the teacher had something to do with it because he wasn't the only one
hmm
who was having issues. And there were some kids in there that
More.
instigated.
Yeah.
But I had a second grader who was going through some things. I had a husband who was going through some things.
Once again, we were fighting for Mama's attention.
And yeah, apparently. And I had to hold it all together. And I only had so much
Yeah.
to do that. And I couldn't take on rehabilitating my husband,
No.
who, any family member knows, even a married people,
hmm
you listen to other people more than you listen to your spouse sometimes.
Mm.
And
And sometimes that's helpful, and other times it's not.
well, and if
And
you're not going to listen to me and do your exercises, then you're not going to get better and you're putting
yeah,
more pressure and more on me.
yeah.
And so I was trying to
And I wasn't
alleviate
looking
that,
at it that way. Yeah.
alleviate that at that point
hmm
and do what was best for everyone,
Yeah.
not just what was best for me, but what was best for you, what was best for Kenny, and
All right.
especially what was best for my mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even though she didn't live with us, she lived with us at that time. And honestly, I love my mom, but she's even a more strong personality than me.
Yeah.
And she I joke that I don't know my wrong. That was my mom, but it wasn't a joke with her. She was in the
hmm
right no matter what.
hmm
And they already clash sometimes. So having him home and him not doing it, and she's more sarcastic than I'll ever be. And the
Right.
sarcastic comments she would have come up with would have been hurtful.
hmm
And
Yeah.
so I was trying to stop that. And so I think a couple good things we can talk about in the next couple episodes
Yeah.
is we can get into the changing of schools for Kenny
hmm
and
Into what was an incredible school for Kenny.
yeah, it was an incredible school, but when we got into the apartment, our lives changed.
Yeah.
drastically. We had one hit. Talk about saying, I'm done, I'm seriously done. We were screaming that at the top of our lungs at one point.
This is where the avalanche was really coming down.
Yeah. And so we'll get
And-
into that. We'll also get into more of Kevin. And, you know, one thing we want, all right, I'm going to put it this way and you can correct me.
Sure.
I think one reason we're doing this is there are a lot of people who've gone through similar things than us, not exactly the same thing, but similar.
Similar.
And they feel like they're all alone,
Mm-hmm.
or they feel there's no one out there that understands them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we're being vulnerable, and we're going to be even more vulnerable in the future.
Yeah.
But you are understood. You are understood more than you think by us. You know, we understand what it feels like to go through some things, and by God, He understands you. And I think what you're going to see in the next couple episodes is how one of us, names will remain nameless, leaned a little bit more on God sometimes than the other one of us. And then there were other times when the other one of us leaned more than one of us.
Yeah.
And yeah, and
throughout the next few episodes, you're going to see how God brought us out of ashes.
yeah, yeah,
Really and truly, because if he didn't bring us through those ashes, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this.
Exactly.
Truly. And so you're going to see a lot of healing that came through this, even though it took a good 10 years to happen.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah. And I think, and
that's what we want people to come away with.
I'm going to throw this out there.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to call and talk to her. Maybe we can get my sister on the phone, because through this time, she was my lifeline, even if I didn't like half the things she was saying. So I don't know if she'll come on or not. I have to ask her. But Roxanne, if you're listening, give me a call.
Yeah. She would be a good one. Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're done for today.
We are.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to our episodes, to our podcast. And we would love to hear from you, but more than that, we would love for you to continue to come on. And if you are enjoying our podcast,
we encourage you to like,
subscribe,
and share. Thanks for coming on.
Bye.